when my coworker handed me a USB drive and whispered, "Don't watch this at work. Delete it after. You have 24 hours." I thought she was being paranoid. But when I plugged it in that night and saw what was on it, I realized she wasn't trying to scare me. She was trying to save my life. My name is Jenna Rossi. I'm 31 years old, and I work as a junior accountant at Harmon Financial Group in downtown Chicago. The woman who gave me that USB drive was Paige Sullivan, a senior analyst in our department who I'd worked alongside for 2 years. We were friendly, but not close, the kind of colleagues who chat by the coffee machine, but never hang out after work. That USB drive contained evidence of something so terrible that it put both our lives in danger, and I had less than 1 day to decide what to do about it. Before we get into this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. I've been working at Harmon Financial Group for 2 years now. It's a mid-sized investment firm with about 200 employees, located in one of those glass office buildings in downtown Chicago that looks impressive from the outside, but is pretty standard inside. Cubicles, fluorescent lights, the constant hum of computers and hushed phone conversations. I started there right after getting my accounting degree, working my way up from an entry-level position to junior accountant. The job was demanding, especially during tax season, but I was proud of what I'd accomplished. The pay was decent, the benefits were good, and I felt like I was building a real career. My life outside work was pretty simple. I share a small apartment in Wicker Park with my best friend from college, Melissa. She works in marketing, and we've been roommates for 3 years now. Most of my days follow the same routine. Wake up at 6:30, take the Blue Line downtown, work from 8 until 6, sometimes later if we're busy. It's not exciting, but I like routine. After growing up in a household where my dad's construction business almost went bankrupt twice, and money was always a source of stress, having stability feels like a luxury I don't take for granted. I'm close with my younger brother Lucas. He's 26 and works as a software engineer out in San Francisco. We text almost every day and video chat on weekends. My parents retired to Arizona about 3 years ago, and I visit them twice a year. It's a good life. Maybe even a bit boring by some people's standards, but it's mine, and I've worked hard for it. Paige Sullivan was someone I saw almost every day, but didn't really know on a personal level. She was 38 years old, a senior analyst who'd been with the company for 7 years. She worked on the same floor as me, but in a different department, handling high-value investment accounts. Paige was brilliant with numbers, the kind of person who could look at a spreadsheet and spot errors that everyone else missed. She was quiet and kept to herself, mostly always polite, but never really chatting about her personal life. Our interactions were limited to small talk in the break room or brief exchanges about shared clients. She always seemed a bit stressed, but I figured that was normal for someone in her position. The company culture was pretty competitive, and everyone seemed to be under constant pressure to perform and bring in results. The day everything changed was a Thursday in early November. It had been a long day, one of those days where you look up from your computer and suddenly realize 9 hours have passed. I'd been working on quarterly reports for several clients, double-checking numbers and making sure everything balanced correctly. By 5:30, most people had already left for the day. The office was quiet, just a few stragglers finishing up their work. I was packing up my things, getting ready to meet Melissa for dinner at our favorite Thai place, when Paige appeared at the entrance to my cubicle. I looked up and immediately knew something was wrong. Paige looked terrible. Her face was pale, almost gray, and her eyes were red and puffy like she'd been crying. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the edge of my cubicle wall. This wasn't the composed, professional Paige I was used to seeing. This was someone who looked genuinely terrified. Paige stood at the entrance to my cubicle, looking around nervously like she was afraid someone might see her talking to me. "Jenna, do you have a second?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, shaky and uncertain. I could see her hands trembling against the gray fabric of the cubicle wall. "Of course. Are you okay? You don't look well." I started to stand up, concerned that she might need medical help or something. She looked like she was about to collapse. Paige stepped closer, her eyes darting toward the security cameras mounted in the corners of the office ceiling. I'd never really paid attention to those cameras before, but the way she was looking at them made my skin crawl. She reached into her blazer pocket and pulled out a small USB drive, the plain black kind you could buy at any office supply store for a few dollars. There was nothing special about it, no markings or labels, just a standard flash drive. "I need you to take this," she said, pressing it into my palm. Her hand was cold and clammy against mine. "Don't open it here. Don't watch it at work. Take it home tonight. Watch it on your personal computer, not anything connected to the company network. And after you watch it, delete everything and destroy the drive." I stared at the USB drive in my hand, feeling increasingly uncomfortable with this entire situation. What could possibly be on this drive that required all this secrecy and paranoia? "Paige, what is this? What's going on?" I tried to keep my voice calm, but I could hear the edge of fear creeping in. Was this some kind of weird prank? Was Paige having some sort of mental breakdown? She'd always been so professional and put together, and now she was acting like we were in some kind of spy movie. "I can't explain right now," Paige said, glancing over her shoulder again toward the hallway. "There are cameras everywhere. Microphones too, probably. Just trust me on this. Watch it tonight when you get home. You'll understand everything once you see what's on there. And Jenna," she grabbed my wrist suddenly, her grip surprisingly strong and desperate. "You have 24 hours to decide what to do with what you see. After that, it might be too late for both of us." My heart started pounding. "Too late for what? Paige, you're really scaring me right now. If something's wrong, we should talk to HR or go to the police or something." She shook her head violently, releasing my wrist and taking a step back. "No, not HR. Definitely not HR. They're part of it. Just watch the videos. And you'll understand why I can't go to anyone here, why I can't go to the police alone." "Videos? There were videos on this drive? Videos of what?" "I'm so sorry to drag you into this," Paige continued, her voice breaking slightly, "but I didn't know who else to trust. You're new enough that you're not part of their inner circle, but you're smart enough to understand what you're looking at when you see it. Please, just watch it tonight. All of it. Then you'll know why I need someone else to have this information." Before I could ask any more questions, before I could even process what she was saying, Paige turned and walked quickly toward the elevators. Her footsteps were fast and purposeful, and she didn't look back at me once. I watched her disappear around the corner, and then I was alone in my cubicle, holding this mysterious USB drive that suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked around the office. A few people were still at their desks, several rows away, heads down, focused on their computer screens. Everything looked completely normal. The hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of someone typing, the soft glow of computer monitors in the dimming evening light. But nothing felt normal anymore. Paige's terror had been real. Her shaking hands, her pale face, the way she kept looking at the cameras like they were weapons pointed at her. Whatever was on this USB drive, it had scared her badly enough to risk giving it to me, a colleague she barely knew. I slipped the drive into my coat pocket and finished gathering my things. My hands were shaking now too, and I couldn't stop glancing at those security cameras that I'd never noticed before. Were they just recording? Or was someone watching right now? Did anyone see Paige give me the drive? I grabbed my purse and my laptop bag and headed for the elevators, trying to act casual even though my heart was racing and my mind was spinning with questions I couldn't answer. The train ride home felt like it took forever. I sat in my usual seat on the blue line, clutching my bag where the USB drive was hidden in my coat pocket. Every time someone walked past me or looked in my direction, I felt a spike of anxiety. I kept replaying Paige's words in my head. "You have 24 hours to decide what to do." 24 hours for what? What kind of decision was I supposed to make? I pulled out my phone and almost texted Paige, demanding more explanation, but something stopped me. She'd been so careful about the cameras, so paranoid about being overheard. If she was that worried about surveillance at work, maybe my phone wasn't safe either. I put it back in my pocket and tried to calm down, but it was impossible. By the time I got home, my stomach was in knots and my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Melissa was in the kitchen when I walked in, stirring a pot of pasta sauce and humming along to music playing from her phone. "Hey, perfect timing. Dinner's almost ready. How was work?" She turned around with a smile that faded immediately when she saw my face. "Whoa, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile and made up an excuse about having a headache and needing to finish some work in my room. Melissa looked concerned but didn't push it. I grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and went straight to my bedroom, closing and locking the door behind me. I sat on my bed for a long moment, just staring at the USB drive in my hand. It looked so ordinary, so harmless, just a piece of plastic and circuitry. But Paige's terrified face kept flashing in my mind. Whatever was on this drive had scared her enough to risk her job, maybe even her safety, to make sure someone else knew about it. I opened my laptop, my personal one that I used for Netflix and online shopping, completely separate from any work systems. My cursor hovered over the USB port. Once I plugged this in, once I saw what was on it, there would be no going back. I'd know whatever terrible secret Paige had discovered, and that knowledge would make me responsible somehow. Part of me wanted to throw the drive away, pretend this never happened, go back to my normal, boring life where the biggest stress was meeting deadlines and dealing with difficult clients. But I couldn't. Paige had trusted me, and she was clearly in some kind of danger. I took a deep breath and plugged in the USB drive. The folder that opened contained 5 video files, each one labeled with a date from the past month and a text document titled, "Read this first." My hand trembled as I moved the cursor to the text file and opened it. The message was short and direct, written in the same careful, precise style that Paige used for everything. These videos are security camera footage from the executive floor, obtained through the company server. They show what's really happening at Harmon Financial. Watch them in order. Then you'll understand why I can't go to the police alone, and why I need someone else to know the truth. If something happens to me, this evidence can't disappear with me. I'm sorry for involving you in this, Jenna, but I'm out of options and running out of time. Delete everything after you decide what to do. They're watching everything, and they're more dangerous than you can imagine. I read the message 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each word. Security camera footage obtained through the company server. That meant Paige had hacked into the company's security system. That was illegal. She could go to prison just for having this footage. And she'd given it to me, which meant I was now in possession of stolen evidence of something. Something bad enough that Paige believed people were watching her. Dangerous enough that she was afraid for her life. I double-clicked the first video file. The screen filled with grainy black and white security footage, showing the executive conference room on the top floor, a room I'd never been allowed in. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday 3 weeks ago. 3 men sat around the polished conference table, and I recognized all of them immediately. Richard Harmon, the CEO and founder of the company; Michael Brennan, the CFO who signed all our paychecks; and David Shaw, the head of the investment division. The video had audio, and I turned up the volume on my laptop. Richard was speaking, his voice calm and businesslike, discussing what sounded like a normal client account. But as I listened more carefully, as I heard the numbers he was mentioning, and the way they were talking about moving money in increments to avoid detection, my stomach started to sink. They weren't discussing legitimate business. They were planning how to steal from clients without getting caught. I watched all 5 videos in succession, my horror growing with each one. The first video showed them discussing stealing $2 million from a teacher's pension fund, moving it in small increments to avoid triggering audit flags. The second video showed them talking about offshore accounts and how to hide the money trail. The third video was even worse. Richard Harmon was discussing how to handle an auditor who'd asked too many questions, using vague but clearly threatening language about making sure the person understood there were consequences for pursuing certain lines of inquiry. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely control the mouse. The fourth video showed Paige herself entering that conference room late one evening, confronting Richard directly about what she'd discovered. Her voice was shaking, but determined as she told him she knew about the stealing, the falsified reports, the fraud. Richard's response made my blood run cold. He told her she was already complicit, that every report she'd signed over the past 2 years made her guilty too, and if this came out, she'd go to prison right alongside them. The difference, he said with a cold smile, was that they had money for expensive lawyers, And she didn't. The fifth and final video was dated just 2 days ago. Richard and Michael were discussing Paige, specifically calling her a liability. Michael said he thought she was planning to go to the authorities. Richard's response was chilling. He said they needed to make sure she understood the stakes, and if she talked, they'd make sure all the evidence pointed to her as the mastermind. And if that didn't work, he said, accidents happen. I slammed my laptop shut and jumped off my bed, pacing back and forth in my small bedroom. These men weren't just stealing money, they were threatening Paige's life. And now I knew about it too, which meant I was in danger as well. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and started to dial 911, then stopped. Paige had specifically said she couldn't go to the police alone. Why not? What was she afraid of? I opened the text file again and reread her message. They're watching everything. Did that mean the police were involved somehow? Or was it something else? My mind was racing, trying to think clearly through the panic. If I went to the police right now with just this USB drive, what would happen? The videos showed clear evidence of fraud and threats, but Paige had obtained them illegally by hacking the company's server. Would they even be admissible in court? And if the police started investigating, how long would that take? Days? Weeks? Richard Harmon had money and powerful connections. He could make evidence disappear, intimidate witnesses, maybe even hurt people before anyone could stop him. I needed help. I needed someone I could trust completely, someone who would know what to do. I called my brother Lucas. He answered on the second ring, his voice cheerful and relaxed. Hey Jen, what's up? I could hear music in the background, the sound of his normal evening in San Francisco, a world away from the nightmare I'd just stumbled into. Lucas, something's happened. Something bad. I need your help, and I don't know what to do. My voice cracked, and I realized I was crying. The fear and stress of the past few hours came pouring out all at once. Lucas's tone changed immediately. Okay, I'm here. Tell me everything. What's going on? I told him the whole story, speaking quickly and quietly, even though I was alone in my room with the door locked. I told him about Paige giving me the USB drive, about the videos showing senior executives planning to steal millions from clients, about the threats against Paige, about the message saying I had 24 hours to decide. When I finished, Lucas was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice serious and focused. Jenna, this is federal crime territory. Wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. You can't just go to local police with this. You need the FBI or the Securities and Exchange Commission, people who actually investigate corporate financial crimes. He paused. And you need to do it fast, before those guys figure out that Paige gave you copies of that footage. Lucas stayed on the phone with me for the next 2 hours. He helped me research the FBI's Chicago field office, looked up how to report financial crimes to the SEC, and made me promise to back up the files to a secure cloud storage he set up for me. By midnight, we had a plan. I would contact the FBI first thing in the morning and request an emergency meeting about evidence of financial fraud. Lucas insisted I not go into work tomorrow, to call in sick and stay far away from Harmon Financial until I'd talked to federal agents. But I couldn't stop thinking about Paige. She was in danger right now, tonight. I need to warn her that I'm going to the FBI, I told Lucas. What if something happens to her before morning? Lucas tried to talk me out of it. If you contact her, you might tip off the wrong people. Her phone could be monitored. Her emails could be tracked. I knew he was right, but I couldn't leave Paige completely in the dark. I compromised by sending a vague text message to her number. Got your package. Taking it to the right people tomorrow morning. Be safe. I didn't use any names or specific details. 3 minutes later, my phone buzzed with her response. Thank you. I knew I could trust you. I'm okay for now. Do what you need to do. I tried to sleep, but it was impossible. Every sound in the apartment made me jump. At 3 a.m, I was still wide awake, staring at the ceiling, when my phone rang. Unknown number. My heart stopped. I let it go to voicemail, too afraid to answer. 30 seconds later, another call from a different unknown number. Then a text message that made my blood freeze. We know what Paige gave you. Bring the drive to the office tomorrow, 9 a.m. Richard's office. Come alone. Don't make this complicated. They knew. Somehow they'd found out, and now they were coming after me too. I called Lucas back immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. They know. They just texted me. They want me to bring the drive to the office tomorrow morning. Lucas's voice was sharp and urgent. Do not go anywhere near that building. Call the FBI right now. Not in the morning. Right now. This is an emergency. I found the FBI Chicago field office emergency number and called, my voice trembling as I explained the situation to the agent who answered. He listened carefully, asked me to immediately email copies of the video files to a secure address he provided, and told me to stay in my apartment and lock all the doors. We're sending agents to your location now. Don't leave. Don't answer calls from numbers you don't recognize. Just wait for us. Within 40 minutes, there was a knock on my door. 2 FBI agents stood in the hallway, showing their credentials through the peephole. I let them in, and Melissa stumbled out of her bedroom, completely confused about why federal agents were in our living room at 4 in the morning. The agents interviewed me for over an hour, copying everything from the USB drive and asking detailed questions about Paige, the company structure, and the threatening text. Message. One agent made a phone call, then turned to me with a serious expression. We're sending a team to check on Paige Sullivan right now. We're also executing a warrant to seize records from Harmon Financial at 6 a.m. before anyone can destroy evidence. The other agent looked directly at me. Ms. Rossi, you did exactly the right thing calling us immediately. Based on what we're seeing in these videos and the threat you received, you and Ms. Sullivan may need protective custody until we can make arrests. At 6:47 that morning, my phone rang. It was Paige, and she was crying. Jenna, 2 men came to my apartment an hour ago. They tried to break down my door. I called 911 and they ran, but I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. The FBI agent took my phone and identified himself, telling Paige that agents were already on their way to her location. Within minutes, they confirmed she was safe and being brought to FBI offices for protection. By 9 a.m., Richard Harmon, Michael Brennan, and David Shaw were arrested at their homes before they could get to the office. The FBI seized computers, financial records, and files from Harmon Financial. The investigation eventually uncovered $47 million in stolen client funds, falsified documents going back 5 years, and evidence of threats and intimidation against multiple employees. Paige's security footage, combined with the company's own records, built an overwhelming case that the defense couldn't fight. The trial took place 8 months later. Richard Harmon was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison for wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. Michael Brennan got 18 years. David Shaw cooperated with prosecutors and testified against the others, receiving a reduced sentence of 8 years. The stolen money was recovered and returned to victims, including the teachers' pension fund that had lost millions. Paige and I both testified at the trial. Sitting in that courtroom, facing the men who'd threatened our lives, was terrifying. But we had each other, and we had FBI agents who believed us and protected us. The defense tried to discredit Paige's evidence as illegally obtained, but the prosecution argued that her methods had uncovered genuine crimes that were corroborated by the company's own financial records. Harmon Financial collapsed after the arrests. The company declared bankruptcy, and 180 employees lost their jobs, including me. It was devastating watching innocent colleagues suffer because of corruption at the top. I spent 3 months unemployed before finding work at a smaller accounting firm that valued integrity. Paige had an even harder time. Despite being the whistleblower, some former colleagues blamed her for destroying the company and costing them their jobs. The emotional toll was severe, and she entered therapy to cope with the trauma and guilt. We became close friends through the ordeal, bonded by an experience no one else could truly understand. The FBI later told us that Paige had been suspicious for over a year, but was too frightened to act after seeing what happened to employees who questioned management. When she finally obtained the security footage, she'd planned to go to authorities herself, but then she was followed leaving the office one night and realized they were watching her. She needed someone else to have the evidence in case something happened to her. That's why she chose me, someone junior enough to be overlooked, but smart enough to understand what she was seeing. My brother Lucas flew in from San Francisco the week after the arrests. and stayed with me for 2 weeks. Having him there, the person who'd helped me navigate the most terrifying night of my life, meant everything. He helped me understand that what I'd done was brave, even though it hadn't felt brave at the time. It had felt like survival, like making the only choice that wouldn't leave me complicit in terrible crimes. Here's what I learned from those 24 hours that changed my life. When someone risks everything to trust you with the truth, honor that trust. Paige could have stayed silent and protected herself, but instead, she chose to expose the fraud, knowing it might cost her everything. That kind of courage deserves to be met with equal courage. I also learned that doing the right thing doesn't guarantee a happy ending for everyone. Innocent people lost their jobs because of crimes they didn't commit. That's the collateral damage of corruption, and it's why speaking up matters so much, even when it's hard. The night I plugged in that USB drive, I had a choice. I could have deleted everything and pretended I'd never seen it. Part of me wishes I'd made that choice, because the months that followed were filled with fear and uncertainty. But if I'd stayed silent, the fraud would have continued and more people would have been hurt. Paige might have disappeared. Sometimes the right choice is also the hardest choice, and you don't know how things will turn out until you're already committed. I still work in accounting. I still love the satisfaction of making numbers balance correctly. But now I pay attention to details differently, looking for inconsistencies that might signal something wrong. I'm also more careful about the companies I work for, researching their leadership and reputation before accepting positions. Paige eventually found work at a nonprofit that helps whistleblowers navigate the legal system and cope with coming forward. She uses her experience to support others facing impossible situations, people who have evidence of wrongdoing but are terrified of the consequences. Last month, she told me about a case she worked on, a woman in a similar situation who needed to hear that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when it matters. If this story resonated with you, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment with your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Most of us will never be handed a USB drive full of evidence of serious crimes, but we'll all face moments where we have to choose between what's easy and what's right. Those moments define who we are. I wasn't a hero, just someone who made the right choice when it counted. That's all any of us can do. Thank you for watching, and remember, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you're terrified.